As you may or may not know, my name is Lynn Munder. I'm the Associate Director for the WIN Fellowship at the Atlantic Council. It is such a privilege to welcome all of you here today. Briefly, I will tell you about the WIN Fellowship. Our mission is to increase women's economic participation, entrepreneurship, and leadership across the Middle East and North Africa region. We are driven by the belief that empowering women is not only essential for their own advancement, which we see often, but it's crucial for the broader economic prosperity of the region. I'm a researcher by default, so I would say this empirical evidence supports that notion. Having active women economic participation has a multiplier effect. It benefits both economic and societal progress. Today's topic is very important. It's about the role of sustainable finance in the Middle East, and actually UAE. In the current landscape where we see economic development intersect with environmental stewardship, it is imperative to acknowledge and increase the vital contribution of women in the field. Before we start, I want to thank our sponsor, the U.S. mission to the UAE. They've been amazing since day zero, supporting the fellowship, believing in all the fellows as well. I also want to thank ADGM, our in-country partner in UAE, this wouldn't happen without them. So I want to thank both of them. Now, it is my honor to introduce someone super special, Ambassador Martina Strong. She is the U.S. Ambassador to the UAE, who has been, I would say, consistent supporter of the fellowship since day zero in Saudi Arabia. She's been there, seen it all from scratch until we are here today. Ambassador Strong's 27-year career as a senior foreign service officer is marked by significant achievements across the globe. Her previous position included Chargé d'Affaires in Saudi Arabia and Deputy Chief of Mission in Bulgaria. Ambassador Strong's earlier postings spanned countries such as, I would say, Poland, Czech Republic, France, but she's been everywhere. You think of it, she's been there. Her versatility is further highlighted by her tenure as a director on the National Security Council, the White House. Ambassador Strong, we're eager to hear your insights.
Lynn, very much for the kind introduction. And let me just say that this morning I felt what I felt on day zero of the program, which is this amazing energy in the room. And it's creative energy. It's the energy that comes with gathering phenomenal women and men in a room, all with one goal, and that is to help women entrepreneurs. But before I get into that, let me just say how truly honored I am to be collaborating again with the Atlantic Council on Empower Me. As Lynn mentioned, I was there from the very beginning when we launched a program in Saudi Arabia. And I have to say that had it not been for the vision and the hard work and the support, really consistent and committed support of the Atlantic Council, I don't think any of us would be here today. So I do want to express my very special thanks to the Atlantic Council for all that they have done since the program's inception. And of course, I must also thank for today's panel, which is indeed critical because it talks about women entrepreneurs and access to finance. So for the panel, Abu Dhabi Global Market, the Atlantic Council again, and Bloomberg for really kind of bringing together a very, very impressive group of women who are entrepreneurs in their own right and have done some amazing things to support others. But really, the day belongs to the WIN Fellows, and I just want to say how proud I am to be joining you today on this inception of your journey. Um, it it it's a program that recognizes first and foremost achievement, and all of you have achieved already amazing things to have been selected for the program. But it also recognizes potential, and that potential is really what is so exciting about this program, is because we know that in addition to the great things you've already done, you will do many other great things. So you are role models, you are achievers, and you are leaders. And so I want to congratulate you on your selection and on everything that you will be doing with the program going forward. Um, I also should recognize the great collaboration we have enjoyed with the Georgetown McDonough School of Business. They have really become a key partner, but it goes beyond partnership. They have become also part of the dynamic momentum that this program has gathered. And they have recently, as some of you may know, introduced an executive MBA program here in the UAE, and we're very excited about this addition to the rich fabric and landscape of our bilateral cooperation, because indeed our bilateral relationship, the relationship between the United States and UAE, is now 50 plus years old. It extends to every sector, every domain. But I always say relationships are built by the people. And I mean by that all of you and your predecessors and many others, because all of you are contributing to the economic, commercial relationship, the academic exchanges we enjoy with the UAE, and all of you are contributing to the momentum that our relationship now enjoys. Let me just say a few words about women and entrepreneurship and how important what we're trying to do with this program truly is. We know, of course, that women's access to capital is a challenge worldwide. This is not a problem that's unique to this region. It's not a problem that's somehow resolved and fully addressed in the United States. But what we do know, and you don't have to take my word for it, there are many, many studies and real life examples. When women are empowered economically, they invest in their families, they invest in their communities, of course, they invest in their businesses, and they spur economic growth and they create more stable societies. And in the U.S. Embassy here in Abu Dhabi, and working very closely with our consulate in Dubai, we are determined to support programs such as this one. We had earlier supported a program that's called Start AD. It's a program that has, over the past few years, supported 29 women-led businesses that have now generated $41 million in revenues and raised $7.5 million in funding and created nearly 500 jobs in the UAE. So that's one example of what we're trying to do in addition to the Empower Me program. But it's not enough. And I really look to all of you to come up with new ideas and certainly new programs that we would very much want to be part of. And I am confident this room is full of great ideas, and I look forward to exploring them with you, hearing also from the panel about how all of us here can do better to support women entrepreneurs. There's one sector that I'm particularly excited about, and that's climate tech. Apparently, here in the region, this is one source of optimism and hope because it's breaking global trends, and the majority of the startups have women in leadership roles in that particular sector. So, as I said, there is hope. And I am told that a remarkable 25% of startups featured in PwC Middle East first net zero report had female founders. So again, women are stepping into the roles of leadership. I am certain that from the new cohort of WIN Fellows, we are going to see many more leaders. I know some of you already have businesses, have started your businesses, and so it'll be leaders of bigger companies. And I am just really excited about the growth potential that I've already heard about from those of you who have businesses here. So, as I said, I look forward to working with you. My team looks forward to working with you. And let me just conclude by wishing all of our Emirati friends and colleagues a very happy National Day. I'm doing so a little bit early, but I am not going to be seeing all of you later on. So I hope you'll enjoy that special day, which is just such a great celebration of everything that the UAE has achieved over the past 5 decades. And we are so proud to be part of this journey and part of this success. Thank you.
But love the and that's there for your words. I'm not going to take much of your time. I just want to let you know that I'm incredibly excited to be moderating this panel today. I don't get to do this a lot, but when I get to do it, and when I get to do it with 4 women on the stage today, that makes me really happy. So again, wouldn't take much of your time. I want to get started with this discussion. So let me go ahead and introduce my panelists for today. Starting with Sheikha Al-Nuwais, who is Corporate Vice President of Owner Relationship Management at Rotana. Sheikha, please join us on stage. Followed by Linda Fitzallen, who is Registrar and Chief Executive at ADGM Courts. Linda. Then we have Patricia Gomez, who is Regional Head of Commercial Banking at HSBC. And finally, we have Tharishni Peter, who is Chief Financial Officer at Visa for the GCC. Thank you all for joining us today. We had a little discussion this morning, but I want to get started with the real serious questions. Sheikha, you're going to be the first to take the front. Are you ready?
Yes.
Sheikha, I mean, given your experience and what you do in this region, and given that we're days away from COP28, it's just around the corner, I want to bring it to the, on par with the theme. So considering the hospitalities industry relationship with sustainability, how is Rotana and how are you in your position navigating and implementing sustainable practices?
Thank you, Abir. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to attend this session today. I wanted to thank the Atlantic Council for inviting us, Her Excellency for attending. It's such a pleasure and to share this panel with great, inspiring women. Sustainability is key in Rotana, and it lies in our DNA from the beginning. It's no longer a choice, it's a necessity. So we're trying as much as we can to incorporate it into everything we do. We have our Rotana Earth's corporate global platform that guides our existing hotels into implementing the best practices when it comes to sustainability.
I can give you examples of, I have 3 examples that I wanted to share with the audience. So number one is the Centro Meda in Amman. It's the first hotel that relies fully on solar energy exclusively. This is something we're very proud of. Another initiative that is very close to my heart as well is which has recently launched a year or 2 years ago, is we're trying as much as we can to support locally owned farms and source their products into our breakfasts, our buffets, and this has been implemented in 30 of our hotels in the UAE. The third, and something that I have also been very involved in, is the Saadiyat Rotana. Saadiyat Rotana, and I encourage all the audience here to visit this hotel because it's such a special hotel. From the beginning, we tried as much as we can to incorporate the environment into its DNA. So we engaged a local artist to work on 365 artwork across all the hotel rooms. And these artwork represented the wildlife environment that enriches Saadiyat. And Saadiyat is a gem, and it's beautiful from nature to wildlife environment from all aspects. And that's why we wanted to tell a story to our guests about the wildlife environment and the turtles, the gazelles. You can see gazelles roaming around from so many aspects as well. Another thing, we have also engaged ourselves with stakeholders in Environment Agency is to help in releasing rescued turtles as well, to help with the conservation and their conservation management plans, which we're also very proud of.
Yeah.
That's great. I do love a staycation in Saadiyat.
I encourage all the audience here to visit Saadiyat Rotana
every once in a while. Patricia, I want to bring it to you. I see you're a little. I'm not going to go by order. It's going to be everyone.
Catch us off guard.
Yeah, I'll catch you off guard just to see where your thoughts are at. I know that you've worked in, all over the world, different major hubs, New York City, Hong Kong, you were in London before you came to Dubai. So I want to pick your brain. I want to hear your thoughts about how you think the MENA region compares to other regions that you've worked on and participated in terms of women's roles in commercial bankings, and what lessons do you think can be applied from your, massive international experience?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I feel like a bit like a global citizen. I was born in Portugal and grew up actually here in Abu Dhabi and have worked in some amazing places around the world. And what's interesting is to see that, and even when you talk about the MENAT region, there's a lot of diversity within the MENAT region in women's representation in the workforce, certainly in banking. If you compare, for example, I would put the 2 bookends, I would say Egypt and Qatar, and I would put those as 2 bookends in terms of what I see. But if you go around the world, I think that there are elements of commonality on the challenges that females have in breaking through what I call the glass ceiling in finance, commercial banking, finance more broadly, and commonality around things that we've all heard around imposter syndrome. Happens everywhere, no matter where you are. Commonality around, the second shift that women have to do when they arrive home. Commonality around feeling constantly guilty about not being the perfect wife and the perfect parent and the perfect banker. So these are things that I see no matter which nationality of women I speak to. But then there are things that are different. Interestingly, where I experienced the most senior women in banking was actually in Hong Kong. And my hypothesis is that it's related to a lot of the culture as well as the affordable support and childcare that exists, but also culturally, the way that Hong Kong Chinese women are driven to succeed in what's expected of them. That's where I saw a lot of the senior females. Interesting, when I look at the data within HSBC, and we take gender diversity very seriously, and we have targets internally that we monitor. And within my business line of commercial banking, I would say that MENAT is amongst the top 3 globally of females in senior roles. We see Hong Kong, UK, and MENAT at about 40% of women in senior roles at HSBC. And conversely, I would say in the US it's 30%, and in LATAM it's 20%. So when we think that the West is actually better, it's not necessarily what we see.
Right. And I just want to remind the audience that we will allow some time at the end of this session for some questions. So if you have anything, just get it ready. And then we'll take it back to Linda. Linda, we were talking before the session about how, we're not really financiers as opposed to a lot of the other women that are sitting here. So your background is in legal, ADGM courts, and given the importance of the legal framework in shaping industry practices, whether it's finance or anything else, what is the role that you see for ADGM courts in advancing gender diversity in the UAE, in Abu Dhabi and in the UAE?
Abila, thank you for the question. Ambassador, it's a privilege to be with you. So you're absolutely right. We had this conversation about how you and I are sort of slightly out of sync with finance. But as I said to you and as I share, I'm surrounded by finance, enveloped by finance, invigorated by finance, but I'm not in finance. And I think if I can, as a lawyer, and the perfect lawyer as well doesn't kind of exist, I have a perspective about the rule of law and how ADGM courts fits into that. And particularly with gender. So for us, we can lead in 2 ways. We can walk the talk. We can have female representation on the court, which we do. And we have female judicial candidates coming up through the ranks. We feel extremely strongly about that. We also, what we can do as well, and is what we do every day, is we uphold the rule of law. Mm-hmm. So we have frameworks, legal frameworks within ADGM that we work with, and it's incredibly important for us transparently and robustly to show what is expected, to show where that rule of law is, what the boundaries are, and how corporations and individuals need to really look at the way that those frameworks are interpreted. So it's incredibly important for lawyers and courts, judges, the whole of the legal sector to be supporting business and corporations in being accountable and showing accountability in the way that diversity and gender in particular should be taken. They should be accountable for it. So and we feel quite a sense of responsibility to that, and we have the authority to do that. So I think that makes that incredibly important as well.
And that reminds me of when the UAE's government came out with a rule of introducing a regulation that mandated listed companies to have at least 1 woman on board, and that's going successfully. So in terms of holding people accountable and having authority, that just, speaks to exactly what you just said. Yeah. Tarishni, I want to bring it to you and to Visa. And I know you personally are big on promoting diversity and you're big on inclusion as well. So bringing it to Visa and bringing it to your role at Visa, how does the company and how do you, in your position within the company, view your role in economic empowerment for women in the MENA region and wider regions, and, particularly in sustainable finance? And are there any specific programs you can speak to us today that promote gender diversity within the company and to women in the region?
Sounds good. Thank you for being here today. It's phenomenal so far listening to these wonderful women. Can hear me? Purpose is the fact that they believe in inclusion and in everything to everyone. Stand by that mission. Can you just hear me? I think I'm not very good. Right. All right. Can you? Oh, yep. Okay, perfect. So as I was saying, I think Visa's mission as a goal in trying to bring finance payments across the world and how do they drive that inclusively is an important philosophy because I think it drives the entire purpose. I think that in my role within the company, and I think just to hear what you've said is just on the way that inclusion works within Visa as well as within Samia, which is our region and head office here. Fundamentally, there is significant female representation at the financial leadership level. And then that drives, and I think the understanding that without that diversity and inclusion, you're not going to drive innovation, you're not going to drive resilience, you're not going to be driving thought leadership, and you're not going to be also driving economies of scale. So I think that's a fundamental within Visa itself. The programs that they offer, therefore, is significant. From an internal perspective, one of equality, so equal pay policy, which is huge, and that's changed a lot. So that's phenomenal, and I'm very proud to say that under the Visa umbrella. I think the second thing is the return to work policy. So how do we make women feel comfortable to come back in after they've taken some time off? Because in most cases, as we all know, and that those that have had kids, is that it's very difficult to come back to the workforce, especially if you don't feel welcome. And I think that's really one of the areas that we've been focusing on, coaching both the team leaders as well as coaching the individuals coming back and making sure that there's a smooth transition. From an external lenses, one of the biggest programs that we've run and we've brought, it's a global program, but we've only brought recently, as in last year to 2022, we brought in the Visa initiative of Visa Everywhere, She's Next. And it's a phenomenal program, and I'm super proud to be involved in it. And this year, we actually took it to all of the GCC markets. And I will give you one highlight of it. I mean, this year, the winner from the UAE was a woman that's run a thrift shop. And her whole idea is to drive female empowerment and trying to drive economies of scale again. You know, how do you bring back and having a 360 model of clothing that allows you to then fund different initiatives across. The other thing that Visa does from an external lenses is, I'm sure you've all watched the FIFA World Cup and the female sponsorship, one of the largest sponsorships is also Visa. So I think the fundamentals, both internally and externally, really resonate under the Visa umbrella of trying to drive diversity and inclusion.
Right. And yeah, I mean, we see what Visa does and other companies do in the region. It's always great to see this, representation of women. And it's much needed, which brings me to my next question, and that's going to be directed at anyone. So you could just take the question and go with it. The UAE is ranked pretty high in the Gender Equality Index by the World Economic Forum, but women in this country still hold less than 10% of board positions. These are numbers that are out there. These are numbers that your companies are actively trying to address. So I would like to hear from you, what strategies are you following or would like to follow in order to address this gap?
I think implementing the right policies within an organization, allowing them to have the right balance between their personal and work life is key to allowing them to grow. Mentoring is also another thing. So identifying the right talent and finding the right ways to invest in these talent and work on it. For example, in Rotana, 58% of the Emirati workforce are women.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we keep them? How can we ensure that they're growing with the company? And how can we make sure that they get to the right levels that will empower them to be at the highest levels? I think as the UAE is already far ahead when it comes to women empowerment, and they were able to prove themselves and distinguish themselves from irrespective of male, but they managed to prove themselves with their dedication, their hard work, and their passion for what they do.
Yeah.
So this is very important.
And I hear what you're saying, Sheikha, and it's something that I hear from a lot of women as well, longevity in the workplace. That's something that companies need to work harder at. at addressing keeping women around for longer. Linda, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think it's incredibly important. But for me, what I'd like to see more of is the widening of roles, is the greatest spread of opportunity given to women in management. I feel like sometimes there's not enough nurturing of women from a career perspective as they're emerging through organizations. And I think if there are a widening of roles, an increasing of roles, an expansion of skills in those roles as well, and educational opportunities, I think that is where women can grow enormously, because for me, women seize opportunity with absolute passion and they run with it. And I think that if there are more opportunities that they're given, supported by mentors, not only mentors, but the duo of the mentor and the champion, a champion at board level or at very senior management level, coupled with a mentor, talking to them, helping them through. And to be honest, sometimes it's just about listening. Yeah. It's just about being a sounding board, and then they can go to their champions and talk to them about what they want to do. And they've got a very clear vision. And I think corporations owe that duty to women and emerging women in their careers to provide those opportunities.
Yeah. So longevity, opportunities. Patricia, what do you think?
So, guys, I don't think this is rocket science. And I genuinely, there are multiple studies out there that you can pick up that tell you what needs to be done. This, to me, is an execution problem, okay? It's about having the conviction and the discipline to execute on what needs to get done. And I feel that organizations many times take the easy way out and don't have the discipline and the conviction to execute. We've heard many of the things here, and it is about making sure that you are absolutely, Abir, we were talking before about Bloomberg and the examples that you have in terms of how your editors require that there are sources. One of the source needs to be a female for stories. How they will not let you moderate a panel unless you have at least one woman. That is conviction. And we know that we need to have gender diverse interview slates and interview panels. We know we need to demand gender diverse slates for interview and positions. We know that we need to sponsor women because mentoring is great, but it's not enough. We know that we need to tap women on the shoulders because they will not normally apply for a role unless they're 120% qualified. We know all the things that we need to do. We should be absolutely clear on the execution of our targets. Why? Because what happens if you're a salesperson and you don't meet your sales targets at the end of the year? You don't get paid, you don't get promoted. Well, why don't we do the same with our leaders who do not meet their gender diverse targets at the end of the year?
Absolutely. That is, you're absolutely right. And I agree with everything you just said, especially when you mentioned how women don't tend to apply unless they're 120% sure. I never really understood why until I got into the job market and I saw the numbers and I saw that in fact is reality. So definitely needs to change. Thrishni, in Visa, and at your capacity, would you agree with what the other panelists have said, and what strategies do you think need to be followed?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think totally agree with the point of views, and I think if you're not deliberate, right? And I think my background is I come from South Africa, and in South Africa we went through apartheid, and during apartheid era, when things changed and we ended up, having re-elected as a democratic society, we needed to be deliberate. And if you were not deliberate, you wouldn't see change. And I think that's, for me, an important, just exactly what you're saying is, how do we get deliberate in what we do and hold people accountable? So it's not just having a scorecard. It's about the actions that pertain if the scorecard is not met. What are we going to do about it? And I think that's important. And I think that's the only way we can drive that inclusion and diversity. So you have an equal set at the table.
Right. Sheikha, I want to bring it back to you, and I want to bring the UAE's position in the region and in the world. It's big tourist destination. People come from all over the world. I was raised here. I've seen the trajectory of change that this country has witnessed over the past, I don't want to say how many years, but over the past few years. In your opinion, how does Rotana, and how do you, in your position again, how do you cultivate strategies to support bringing on a new generation of women into the workforce, especially in areas of, again, bringing it to sustainability and others, if you want to speak about that?
Look, at the beginning, Abir, it was very difficult for us to attract UAE Emiratis as talent to the hospitality industry. But I need to give credit to NAFIS. NAFIS was an initiative that was launched around 2 years ago that gave subsidies to the private sector to encourage more Emiratis to join the private sector. And us, considered to be among the private sector, we managed to leverage on this initiative, and we managed to attract a lot of talent. We reached out to universities, we participated in career fairs, through LinkedIn, and we managed to attract the right talent. This has helped us a lot, and I think this will grow because the population is growing, and we need to keep track of that, and we need to be part of giving back to the community by mentoring as well, by coaching them, by training them, and by making sure that they stay in the industry. Because at the end, as a UAE national, and you will be the perfect representation for people that will come from abroad and experience what we have in the UAE in terms of culture, in terms of traditions.
Yeah. So you brought on NAFIS, which is a government program.
Yes.
So you think that government programs or government initiatives can aid you in your company?
Yes, absolutely. We've this is very evident. Like, it has grown by almost 50%.
Okay.
Having nationals being in the hospitality sector and in the private sector. At the beginning, we were unable to compete with government organizations and other organizations when it comes to pay, but now we're almost in par.
That's great to hear.
Yes.
Linda, again, back to you. And this question I would like to broaden afterward. And it's about challenges, right? But your experience is unique, given your background. And in terms of challenges in integrating gender balance and diversity, what would you say those have been in your experience in ADGM or in the country? And what would you recommend to address those challenges?
I don't think there have been insurmountable challenges, and I haven't called them challenges, to be honest. I think they've kind of been goals to do something completely different. So I have had a fascinating journey in this country with digitization.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of the way, and it's all about accessibility and about transparency. And for me, any challenge that I've found here in what I've come across has been something that has been an opportunity to create, an opportunity to digitize something, to make something more accessible. And I think technology is gold for women. I really do, because I think it provides that connection and that reach that women need in order really to promote what they do, to get out there and to really show the world just exactly the power that they have and the creativity. We just, as a sort of tiny example of it, we searched high and low when we were creating a mediators panel for our arbitration center. And diversity was key to it. We wanted to have as many women mediators and diversity generally. We had to go and literally search for those women around the world and find them to include them on the panel. They were not promoting themselves. They were just getting on with it and doing it. And so they would say that a challenge is all about getting known. But I think with technology, I think with how they can promote themselves through that, and I think with really far-sighted organizations, of all of the organizations that this panel works for amazingly, and the work and the interesting, developments that we've had, I think those challenges are more opportunities. That sounds slightly cheesy. It sounds like I could be dodging the question, but I'm not. It is really, I don't see it as blockers. I see it as just interesting ways to clear different pathways. And for me, that's technology. Through me, that's digitizing everything you possibly can do.
Right. Patricia, would you agree? I mean, you're in HSBC, you've worked in different places. Would you agree that technology is, the solution or a cure?
I can't do that. I can't shake my head. It kind of bounces. Absolutely. So, being the eternal optimist that I am, I think that I see a lot of potential what technology has brought to advance gender diversity. And I will pick up on 2 points. One is the fact that it really changes the paradigm and the landscape for leveling the playing field in how women participate and show up. Small example, Zoom. We see a situation where, you have a big boardroom, a lot of men around the table, you have 1 or 2, 3 women voices. They tend to be quieter voices. They tend not to be heard. One of the things we also have to think about is a lot of the problem aren't with the women, it's with the environment that they operate within. Zoom has now made equality happen, and everyone is on Zoom, has the same space in the same window and gets the same ability to have airtime. I think that's been a great equalizer. So I actually now do my meetings. If there's anyone that's not in Dubai where I'm based, everyone goes on Zoom. We don't have a mix between room and Zoom because you create a great equality. So I think technology has been great. I think it provides a lot of opportunity for people to work when they want and their own pace. And that is important. It's probably more important for women, but actually it's a great equalizer, and it's important for men to get used to having that flexible working as well, because they're partners in this equation. The other thing I would say about technology is around financial literacy. So, for example, at HSBC, we've launched Project Noor in our wealth business, which is an app that looks to provide financial literacy education to females. And in the UAE, we know that women are making a disproportionate amount of financial decisions as we go into 2nd and 3rd generation. So being able to educate around financial literacy in a way that anyone can download the app in their home and do that, I think that's been great as well.
Right. Thrishni, would you, what are your challenges, or as Linda calls them, areas of opportunity that you think you have faced?
So I think technology is a big one, right? Because I think technology is an enabler for sure. And if we look at some of the recent studies on possibly the area where you can drive, more entrepreneurs as we grow forward, like the SMB industry, right? So one of the key things on the small micro businesses is about, if you ask them what's their challenges, number one is about technology and being able to get on a platform quickly, and how do we bring that quickly to them. Number 2 is financial inclusion. So how do they get trained up to understand financial inclusion? Exactly what Patricia has also said, is how do we get them trained up to understand that? And then number 3 is having the inroads of green financing, right? Because a lot of these people who start up the business, 8 out of 10 people, are actually putting their own savings in. So how do you create a sustainable model for these female entrepreneurs as they try to grow into the business? So I think that from an SME perspective, it is about trying to digitalize as quickly as possible. I think the good thing that came out of COVID is that there was a need for change, and change quickly. So things that are happening now are probably 5 years or 7 years ahead of where it was going to be before, if there was no COVID. So I think that's a huge accelerator. The support that Visa does today on trying to bring these micro businesses on, and grants perspective in terms of driving these literacy bases. And I think the financial inclusion, which is an interesting one, it is about that hand-holding, because one thing is about giving the finance. The other thing is making sure that they're going to have a sustainable business. And how do you do that, right? And that comes with the mentoring, the driving, understanding what's a cash flow, understanding what's a P&L, because it's not just about a P&L, it's about a cash flow. Money is king. How do you get cash is king, right? So those little nuances that people probably don't understand drives then success of businesses. And what we've seen is the more SMEs that are on digitalization, there's a higher achievement of success on a long term. So 80% achievement on success. So that's phenomenal.
That's great. And just keeping it with you briefly for a second about, you all spoke about technology. So I want to keep it at technology and innovation, which go hand in hand. So can you give us examples of how Visa takes on, the innovation in the financial sector and how it adds women to that equation?
That's a great question. I think firstly, one of the big things is probably the company to recognize that a seat at the table is beyond just having male representative. It is about having this diverse mindset to come in to have a whole different perspective. One of the big things that happened in our region was our GCC leader is Dr. Saeeda Jafar. And as a female coming into the perspective, interestingly, and having a seat at the table, she brings a whole new vision of what women entrepreneurs need. And therefore, there's a need for, as I just spoke about, green finance. How do we get that green finance out quickly rather than later? How do we drive the financial inclusion? But more importantly as well, how do you bring that thought leadership on the table as well? So from an innovative perspective, we run the Innovative Center in Dubai. We've got another hub in Saudi. And what we tend to do is to bring these entrepreneurs in. We try to stimulate and model and pilot different type of items with them, including how do we get to market quicker? How do you drive movement of money quicker? And how do you make sure that you are comfortable with that? Because then there's the cybersecurity. So whilst technology is on the up, which is important, how do we make sure that we are also conscious about cybersecurity? So that literacy and then bringing different innovators to the table to understand that and unlock that is crucial. So I think from a female representation point of view, you can only understand what the challenges are is if you have a female at that level. If you don't have a female at that level, you have no clue what those challenges are and therefore not solving those challenges. Yeah.
Right. And then just conscious of the time, I want to ask one final question that's addressed to all the panelists sitting here today. And I love this piece of data and I always see it around and I also witness it. According to the UAE's Gender Balance Council, 70% of university graduate in the UAE are women. So my question to you is, how can the financial sector harness the capabilities of those women? And another part of that question is, we're in ADGM today. There's a good mix of government versus private sector attendees. How can both sectors collaborate to, again, harness the potential of those women? Sheikha, starting with you.
I think the reason of the 70% is because women are 7 times more than men in the UAE.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
But maybe incorporating the right, when it comes to hospitality, incorporating the right curriculum from the start to allow women or even men to know more about what this industry has and how much does it add to the economy and to the community from the start. And maybe it will allow them to identify or to, when they get to the university and graduate programs, they will know where to go by having this awareness. So implementing the right curriculums from the start is key when it comes to our industry.
Linda?
Widen the opportunities across a larger sectors and then be accountable for allowing them or promoting them to achieve, to give them, to really fulfill where they think their careers want to go. It is about execution. It is about accountability. And I think it's about opening up and making it transparent as to measuring data. So have that data, make these corporations responsible for ensuring that there are these career opportunities, and publicizing them.
70% means that we have a great pipeline. So I would say focus on graduate programs. We do that at HSBC. We bring people in for the graduate program, we train them up, and then we place them, and they have opportunities to move around in various places within the firm. Not just here in the Middle East, but the world is your oyster if you work at HSBC, because we're present in 60 plus countries and we have many different business lines. So you can have a very, very long career, but always feel like you're changing jobs all the time, which is pretty cool. And so I think, you have a great pipeline, get into the graduate program. And then, as Linda said, it's all about the execution.
Right. Harshni, anything with you?
Yes, no, totally agree on the graduate recruitment program. I think that is fundamental. But I think with that comes the flexibility, allowing people to try different roles. Because sometimes what happens is you get into probably a finance, or studied finance, get into finance, and you find out 3 years later, you don't like finance anymore, So, but how do you allow then that student or graduate to try different roles that allows them to figure out what they like and then traject going forward? So flexibility, I think, is crucial. So it's not about how we used to do things. It's about changing how we do things, for sure.
Right. Just allowing maybe a couple of minutes for, if anyone has any questions in the room, please just raise your hand. Someone will pass a mic.
So hi everyone. I hope everyone is hearing me. This is Farah Ahmed. I'm owner and founder of Cosmic Media Consultancy, a marketing agency. And I would love to start by sharing a little experience that would lead me to my question. Years ago, when I was at the time looking at a job, there was a certain position that was a dream job for me. And when I applied, I was pregnant. And at the very end of the selection process, they were like, are you planning to have a nanny? So I was like, yes, but what is the relevance between the selection process and me having a nanny? And they were like, because mommies are going to have to get lots of absences and lots of sick days because of the baby. And having this knowledge and this thought that a child is a mother's responsibility and that dad is an ATM machine. They are not related to the kids by whatsoever. So mommies in C-level positions or managerial positions are very hard for them to reach to the final selection process. So we've been hearing a lot about women empowerment and women in leadership position. But what's really important for us is to market that women are very strong when they have a dream and when they have something in their heart that they believe in. Because of my pregnancy, I lost so many positions. And after delivering my child, I lost so many positions because they were like, oh, you've been out this market for long and you don't know about anything that's happening currently. So what's very important for me to know is that since we've been packed with data, is that how this increasing for women in leadership position, how this positively impacted the company and how this affects the bottom line at the very end. Because we all know that they would select only the ladies that fit their box. And I've been told for so many times that you are a perfect candidate, but we cannot select you. Maybe you can come again to us when everything ends. So I want to know that how this impacted your companies and how the increase for women in C-level positions positively impacted all the companies, since all the ladies work in a very important and huge organizations.
Thank you for that. Anyone would like to start, Kirsten?
I'm happy to start. So I think that's a great question. I was also pregnant when I started my second job here, and I was 3 months pregnant, and I didn't know I was pregnant. So to knock on my manager's door and say, oops, I didn't realize I was pregnant before I started this role. But amazingly, the company was fantastic. So I think that's important, right? I think we've all had those experiences for sure. But I think what I said earlier is how do we make and how does an organization make deliberate choices? And one of the big choices that Visa is doing, which I'm completely proud about, is about how do you bring women back to the workforce? Because that integration is so difficult. It's so difficult to support a new mom, and being able to come back into the workforce easily is super important. So from the coaching perspective to the mentoring perspective, it's super important from not from the person returning, but giving that same tutorship to the manager. Because a lot of the people and a lot of the times, it's not really the organization, but it's probably your manager and how they handle that. And I think education of that manager is so important in trying to drive that change. But that is a deliberate choice that companies need to make for sure.
Patricia, I know you also wanted to say something to address.
So thank you for the question. I'm sorry you had that experience. It's what we call the maternity penalty. And we see it manifest itself through a number of the life cycles that women have. If you don't have children, they think you may have children. If you have children, then you already have and you already have. So we see it manifest itself. What I would say is a couple of things. Number one is that's why it's actually so imperative that we focus on changing the senior level of companies. Because once we have people at the top who understand and who empathize, then decisions will be made differently. In my own experience, I have 2 boys. And both times I came back from maternity leave to get a promotion and a new job in a different location. So I went from London to Hong Kong after my maternity leave, from Hong Kong to New York after my second maternity leave. So I say this because it is possible. The other thing I would say is support. It's super important to get support. Now that support would ideally be your spouse, the father. But whether it is the spouse, whether it's the family group, whether it's paid support, it's about outsourcing the little things that Linda and I were talking about and focusing on the big things. So creating an ecosystem of support, changing the hiring decisions at the top to have empathy. And then the other thing I would say is I say to my male colleagues, remember, we all came from a mother. We all came from a mother.
Thank you for that. Just maybe a couple more questions.
Could I just add one thing to that as well?
Of course.
Is one of the things, and I'm very sorry that you had that, but as you say, unfortunately, it's way too common. I found one of the best things that I loved when I was on maternity leave, 2 children, was that I did have some very supportive men around. I was a partner of a law firm. Those creatures, law firms, are not known for being fantastic in this space. In fact, anything but. And this is more years ago than I'd like to imagine. But I had some incredibly intuitive, thoughtful partners around me who, when I was out, just kept in touch with me, literally about the smallest things that the firm was doing, not to pressure me to come back, but to keep in touch. So the coming back was not a bang, landed, you're back. It was like all of a sudden the information was still there. I felt a part of it. I was always coming back, but I didn't feel like it was night and day. And so it was a very soft landing. And what I found with that is, with the lawyers around as well, was they learn from this, and you are nurturing a culture of inclusion. That just because somebody at some particular time is not physically there, is not at those partners meetings or at the client meetings, but they're in touch and you keep them in touch, it's a great feeling, because you're not alone out there wondering what on earth is going on. I found that incredibly important.
I see someone there who had another question.
Hi, good morning. How are you? Hope everyone's doing good. So I have a question. My name is Anissa, and I am the founder of a business, and I've been running this business for about 7 years now. And starting a business in the UAE is not easy. It's not for the faint-hearted. But alhamdulillah, in the last few years, it's been easier. My question is more of advice related. Seeing women in finance in positions that you are all in is incredible for someone like me, who is seeking kind of like a circle of advice or mentorship when it comes to, number one, accessing funding from corporations that you work for, and number two, financial literacy. I went straight from, I always say I went from the classroom to the boardroom. So I went from working to actually owning a business. It's two different worlds, but the support that us women need continuously is sometimes hard to find. And it would be great to have women like yourselves to kind of have a connection to, or to kind of like be able to contact if there are things that we want to know more of when it comes to scaling up and kind of being in the market and being seen in the market as successful business owners and people who are doing something for the economy and the sustainability of the UAE. So what would be your recommendations for, I'm sure there might be other business owners in the room as well, to connect with women like you in finance? And yeah, how could we go about that? Thank you.
What we have. So we have a few financial inclusion programs for sure. So some of them are online, but we've also kicked off and started off probably a couple of months ago now. We kicked off in the UAE, which we're running with the ITC together with the banks and Visa. And we're running programs for specifically financial inclusion for female entrepreneurs. So please reach out to me. I'll share the details, and lovely to have you, because I think absolutely correct. I think it's that understanding to make sure that these businesses are going to be successful, right? And that's important. Yeah. So please reach out. There's lots of programs.
That's just great. I love that this session opened up the way for other entrepreneurs here to reach out to the wonderful ladies sitting here. Anyone else would like to target Anissa's question?
Maybe I'll just add. So at HSBC, we have a program which is called ROAR, ROAR, like the lion roars. And we developed it in 11 countries. In the MENAT region, we have it in Egypt. Unfortunately, we have not brought it to the UAE just yet. But what it looks to do is to support female founders. We know that female founders typically get less funding than male-founded companies. And that's due to a number of reasons: lack of access to the same types of networks, certainly bias in the investment committee decisions, lack of strong role models, etc. So we partnered with Albright, which is an ecosystem for female founders and empowering women. And we have this ROAR program in 11 countries. We also have a $1 billion female entrepreneurs fund that we deploy globally. Again, it's only available in Egypt at the moment in this region, but that looks to fund female founder businesses. In the UAE specifically, we partner with a couple of female-led VC firms, and we look to select their female-led portfolio companies to bank with. But I would say Albright is definitely an ecosystem worth looking up, and I think that they have an intention to come into the UAE.
Thank you, Patricia. Final question, anyone? Hi, my name is Samar Shurafa, and I have a startup called She is Arab. So I work also to advocate for women's economic inclusion. So this has been great. Thank you, ladies, for your contributions. I just have one question. I'm curious about proximity to leadership and the problem with that. Currently, you're all either in C-suite positions or major leadership positions. So you are not shying away from advocating for women. But from research tells us that women at younger or earlier stages of their career are sort of reluctant to do that because they want to be closer to their usually male leaders. So what advice would you give these young women now that you're on these seats? Thank you. Go for it. Whoever wants to start.
I think determination is key. You have to be determined. You have to be committed. And you have to love what you do and go for it.
I will add that there's a saying by Madeleine Albright, many of you may know, which says that there's a special place in hell for women that don't help other women. Okay? And what I say to people is that no matter how junior you think that you are, there's always someone coming up behind you. And remember who extended a hand to you, and look back and extend a hand backwards.
Yeah.
And I think that should be a commitment that we all make in this fellowship of women helping other women.
Well, I think Darshni, please.
Totally agree with that. I think it is about extending that hand, and you're absolutely right. I think we as women need to do more for sure. And I think the other advice I would say is building your brand, because all of us and each and every one of us have a story and have a brand to build, and believing in that brand as we go up, right? And I think that nurturing that brand together with C-suite pulling along the way should take more up the stream, right? And I think that's important.
That's a great note to end on. It's been a pleasure to talk with you today. And so many insights on this stage. I really have enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to more of those. Thank you to the audience and to the questions and to the Atlantic Council who's hosting us today. I really hope you enjoyed this session, and please feel free to stick around. Thank you.
I just want to thank you all again for joining us today. I feel a lot of gratitude for everyone who contributed to this discussion today. We say the participation and the enthusiasm, it reinforces what we care about is the collective action, the collective effort to create a better environment, an enabling environment for women across the region, not just in UAE. I want to thank all panelists. They're still here, which is good. Their knowledge and expertise is amazing. Thank you. Abir, thank you for leading the discussion smoothly. Appreciate that. Again, thank you for our fund, for the U.S. Embassy in UAE, for the great support, for Ambassador Strong, for continuous support. Lana and Dalia, you're amazing. You've been here for us all the time, making everything happen and fast, and we appreciate that. ADGM, our in-country partner, well, look at this. That happened because of them. They gave us the platform to share our knowledge with all of you. Thank you for our fellows, our youngest, the Dubby. You want to say hi? Finally, thank you everyone for being here today. We're more than happy to share all the knowledge or the experience with you. Have a great day.